Ole Miss and Florida get set to do battle Saturday night in Oxford. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Rebels and the Gators. Hello, I'm Chris Phillips. He's Cole Thompson. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. We are inching ever so close to that 30,000 subscriber mark, and we can't do it without your love and support. Also, make sure you check out our friends over at FanDuel, because as always, we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, FanDuel.com/SECU to join today and get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, FanDuel.com/SECU to get in on the action today. The Ole Miss Rebels and the Florida Gators get set to do that battle Saturday night in Oxford. And the dynamic in this one could be very interesting. On one side, you've got an Ole Miss team sitting at 9-1, college football playoff, potentially SEC championship in their sights. Meanwhile, it's Florida coming off an embarrassing loss in Lexington, Kentucky. They don't have a head coach, which brings me to this next point. Maybe their future head coach is actually on the sidelines in this football game, but is wearing the powder blue. Going to be a very interesting vibe in the stadium on Saturday night at Vaught Hemingway. And SEC Unfiltered will be on hand firsthand to take it all in as the SEC Unfiltered tour heads back to the SIP. Once again, I'm Chris Phillips. He's Cole Thompson. We are previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. Ole Miss, Florida. Bear, appreciate you taking the time. Really excited to chat about a game that doesn't have the same vibe we thought it would have in the preseason. I think you and I both agreed and felt like at least there'd be a lot more on the line in this one. But I could argue it's almost a weirder vibe and a more interesting vibe because of where Florida sits. Billy Napier now gone. There's going to be a very unique feeling in the stadium on Saturday.
Yeah, well, remember that Florida wants to hire Lane Kiffin, and Lane last season was kept out of the playoff for losing to Florida in Gainesville. So you add in that extra storyline, plus knowing that this team is one win away from guaranteeing its spot in the college football playoff, plus the conversations of tampering behind closed doors on, do we go ahead and sign Lane Kiffin and try and get him to come on down to Gainesville and be a part of our culture and be the reason why we've turned the tides and returned to national glory? There's a lot of things that go on top of just the fact that, hey, Florida, you lose this game, you're not going to a bowl game this year. Hey, Florida, you lose this game, you may see a bunch of players decide to opt out before the season's end. Hey, Ole Miss, if you lose this game, now it becomes a must-win in the Egg Bowl, which is a lot easier said than done, especially with this version of Mississippi State. So just everything that we're talking about, there's so many things that could derail this matchup that makes it just a little bit kind of crazy at the top of all things.
Going to be a fun one. Again, Saturday night, 6 o'clock Central Time kickoff, airing on ESPN down there in Oxford, Mississippi at Vaught Hemingway Stadium. Bear, Ole Miss, the last time checking this morning, FanDuel has Ole Miss listed as a 15.5-point favorite. The over-under is set at 53.5. Florida does lead the all-time series 13-12-1, and the last meeting, of course, came last year. Most notably, like you mentioned, Florida played spoiler and knocked Jackson Dart company out of the college football playoff conversation. Florida won that game by a final score of 24-17. Like I mentioned, guys, the SEC Unfiltered tour, in case you missed it, is headed back to the SIP. We are gearing up for a really, really big weekend and really excited to hang out with the folks once again in Oxford, Mississippi. Stay tuned. Some special events, special things we're doing around the city leading into the game this weekend. Super, super pumped. Ole Miss folks, always great to us. And excited to see a good game. And Bear, I want to start there as we dive into the dynamics of this one. Yet again, I have to highlight this. And you and I talked about it on Sunday Fun Day. It's kind of like when, and I'm going to try to remember the exact analogy that you and I presented, but you know, it's kind of like when you ask someone to go to prom and they say yes, and let's say a month or so later you meet your girlfriend or your significant other, but you've already made this commitment to someone else, and it's almost like you're trying to upgrade over your ex type situation, or there's like a certain pettiness or an awkwardness in the air because you really want to be on one side of the situation, but you're on the other side. That's kind of the dynamic right now, and it's like Ole Miss fans come in high flying, feeling great about their team as they should, but they know Florida's got something or wants something, that they've got that being their head coach and Lane Kiffin. What does it really mean for the game? I don't know that it really does. I think what's going to be fun to follow is just this week, though, with Lane Kiffin, how he handles it. We've already seen him with some of the pettiness, with the trolling, with reposting the post about Tramel Jones taking over for a bench DJ Lagway. Heck, we saw him Monday morning. I know it doesn't have to do with this game, but him posting freeze warning with the picture in his car where it showed it was freezing temps down in Mississippi. It's just, we know how Lane Kiffin operates. Again, I say all that to say this week's going to be interesting, and it all culminates Saturday night where, yeah, I just think the vibe with the game is going to be one of the more unique ones. I'm excited to see firsthand like what that feels like in stadium.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's like going to the prom with your current girlfriend or wanting to go hang out with the other chick. This reminds me a lot of the movie She's All That with Laney Boggs. And Laney Boggs is actually turned into Ole Miss, where we view them as kind of the dork, the dweebs, that they don't belong in this upper tier stratosphere of college football chatter. And then you go get a makeover, and lo and behold, now you're the prettiest girl at the party. And that's Ole Miss at this point. Ole Miss has been able to be a consistent 9+ win team underneath Lane Kiffin. They had a 10-win season in his second year there. They had an 11-win season in a year where expectations were kind of out the window. This year, they're on the verge of knocking down the door for an 11-win regular season, which would be another check box in Lane Kiffin's resume on why he is considered one of, if not the greatest coach in Ole Miss program history. Naturally, I've got Johnny Vaught, but still, we're talking about for the future and for the next generation. So maybe in his eyes, this is Laney Boggs, where I thought I knew what I wanted with Florida. I thought I knew what I wanted with LSU. Those were two schools that definitely caught my eye, but I'm committed to this girl, and she got a new haircut. Her makeup looks a lot prettier. Hey, she did something with her face. I mean, is this my dream girl? And that could be Ole Miss in this standpoint. I think the other thing that you have to realize is that Lane is always 2 steps ahead of everybody else. So he may end up be posting all these things with the Tramel Jones benching, and we're talking about the freeze warning. And what he's really doing is he's sending a message to everyone of, hey, I'm focusing on this game. And you got to understand, I may end up taking this job at the end of the day, but I was embarrassed last year. I had a roster filled with future first-round talent, names that were NFL fixtures, all SEC potential, and we crapped the bed. That was on us. We couldn't get the job done in Gainesville. I may end up taking that job, but before I do, I'm going to make sure that I take a little bit of aggression out on what happened last season in the Swamp that really ruined and tarnished a really good team in our last dance mantra. That was my mistake, but still, I allowed you to make that mistake. So I think it's going to be really intriguing to see what's the tone for the very get-go of this game. How quickly do we see Trinidad Chambers and this rushing attack kind of pick up the pace? Do we see some wide receiver one-on-one battles that you're watching as maybe the aggression of Kiffin gets the ball moving and probably uses this as motivation of, hey, listen, if you want me to leave this school, you better be paying me a lot of money because this is what I'm going to do to everybody else when I come into Gainesville, or better yet, this is what I'm going to do moving forward in Oxford.
Bear, you said something on Sunday night, and I agree with, and I had not seen this, but Ole Miss fans talking about that this could be or maybe is the biggest game in school history because Lane Kiffin, I guess, is going up against a team that wants him. I am right there with you. I think that's a little preposterous and a little bit over the top, but I will ask you this question, and I'm curious, to know what the masses would think here. How much of, if at all, does the results of this game impact the future of Lane Kiffin? Is it one of those things where if you're Florida, do you feel like, hey, if we can go in there, pull off the upset as more than 2 touchdown underdogs, does that help sway his decision-making at all? Would it impact his decision-making at all, or is it just truly a one-off of, hey, maybe you got us, but, I'm still going to be – Lane's going to be feeling the same about where he is? I mean, I think as long as they keep winning, again, it only helps the case he's going to be in Oxford because everybody's telling you can't do this, can't do that. You're literally proving it in real time that you can do that. So, the trolling will be legendary from Florida folks. And, I don't know that realistically Florida just winning a football game randomly would be enough to sway him. But, yeah, it's something that at least gives you some pause and some hesitation, makes you stop and kind of think about it for a second.
It changes it a little bit, and I think you'd be lying to yourself if you say it didn't. Because of, again, you're a double-digit favorite in this game. You have the talent that still is a composite roster of a top 15 team, and they come on into your building, and they find a way to get the upset. It's going to change. But the problem is that Ole Miss at this point is not eliminated from the college football playoff. They have a bye week, and then they get ready for a Friday afternoon matchup in Starkville against Mississippi State. And if they win that game, they're back in the playoff. And so if that ends up happening, well, Ole Miss is still going to have multiple weeks ahead to where they prepare for a postseason game, where maybe they're hosting a game out in Oxford. And then if they win that game, they go to the quarterfinals. And if they win that game, they go to the semifinals. And this is where Florida and LSU and any team that wants to hire Lane Kiffin has to have a serious heart-to-heart. Are we going to wait it out, be expecting players to enter the transfer portal, miss out on some recruits because they got signed before the early signing period, and we don't have a head coach to give them who's going to be the guy that they're being coached under? Or do we go move to the next guy? So that's really what this comes down to. I think for Lane, if you lose this game, you start thinking about what could I get at a place like Florida? What am I missing here that I'm never going to be able to accomplish here? And you probably have that chatter behind closed doors of this is where we are as a program. This is what we can be as a program. This is where we are as a program at Florida and what we can achieve to be and how good we're nearly there. But there still is too much to have to be played for if you're Ole Miss. So I don't think it changes it entirely because you are one win away, regardless of if it's this week or next week, or 2 weeks, you're in the playoff. But that's the bottom line, is that you have 2 games to figure out if you're going to be a playoff team. The game next week, or 2 weeks from now against Mississippi State, if you lose this one, that's dire for his future. Because at 9-3 and being out of the college football playoff chatter, that's where LSU picks up the phone and gives you a call. That's where Florida picks up the phone and gives you a call. That's where they make you an offer that they're going to try to have you refuse. And you are not going to be in the playoff for a second straight year where it felt like you were right at the finish line and then you came up short. Do you come up short at a place like LSU and do you come up short at a place like Florida? That's where that conversation begins.
And realistically, you have to feel good if you're an Ole Miss fan, because the fact that we're sitting here talking this much about the Lane Kiffin dynamic and just some of the other things around this game that are off the field, Bear, I think it goes to show how much of an advantage most of us probably feel like Ole Miss has on the field, again, sitting as 15.5-point favorites. The big question in this one, and it's not a question for Ole Miss, the quarterback position. We all know Trinidad Chambliss is going to trot out there, had another big game last weekend, of course, coming against the Citadel, but he's been great all season. Kawan Lacey's been great at the running back position. They've got guys on the outside that are making big plays. Wallace on the outside of the receiver position, tons of different dudes. Seems like 7 or 8 or 9 guys are touching the football for Ole Miss every single weekend. And it's a defense that feels like gets better every single week. Bear, not nearly as much certainty, on the Florida side. Is it going to be DJ Lagway? Is it going to be Tramel Jones at the quarterback position? I think on the field, that's got to be the biggest storyline going in this game.
Yeah, as of the time of this recording, Monday, 9 o'clock, we haven't heard from Billy Gonzalez making the announcement of we're doing a quarterback switch to Tramel Jones. DJ Lagway is going to come on in, but we're going to have a short leash with him. You can't have a 3-interception game. You simply can't, and you can't do it against an inferior competition like a team such as Kentucky. Kentucky's right back in the hunt for a bowl bid because of, once again, Lagway overshooting his targets, undermining his overall offensive personnel, staring down the barrel of weapons across the middle of the field. And I understand you don't have a full team right now. You don't have Dallas Wilson out there. You were limited when it came to your rushing attack. But regardless, this is still a quarterback position that we talk about of you're supposed to be meeting all of these expectations that we saw. You were one of the great top 5 recruits of the 2024 cycle. You were brought in to save Billy Napier's job. You kind of did save Billy's job last year. And now we're watching as regression sets on in. And maybe it wasn't all on Billy. Billy was certainly a problem out in Florida. But you throwing into double coverage, you staring down your tight end and letting the safety be able to kind of time it and make a jump on the route to take it back for an easy house call. Those are things that at this point have not only hindered the success of a team like Florida, but it's part of the reason why Florida's nowhere near in the conversation of being a legit threat for a playoff bid. And so that'll be something that will be really interesting. But how do you prepare for it? I think if you're Ole Miss this week, you got to prepare for both. And what was interesting is that Texas A&M, they watched a lot of highlight film of Matt Zollers from Huddle, from his high school tape. That's what Lane's going to have to do in this week. That's what Pete Golding's going to have to do this week. They're going to have to watch Tramel Jones's high school film and say, here's where his strengths, here's where his weaknesses are. This is what we're going to utilize to put ourselves in a better position to attack him. And hopefully we can win a one-on-one battle against the offensive line to get in the backfield and put more pressure. That way he throws in a double coverage. And it doesn't really matter if it's 2 or if it's 17. Both are going to make those mental mistakes and we're going to capitalize on it. But it's a mystery right now. I ask you, what do you think is the better call? Do you go with Tramel Jones if you're Billy Gonzalez because if there's not enough tape on him and hopefully it turns out better than Matt Zollers? Or do you go back to DJ Lagway and ask yourself, hey, this is what we brought you here for. This is kind of an audition for your next school too. Can you go be the top 5 team?
I'd probably go Tramel Jones. At this point, I feel like DJ Lagway, I know what he's going to give me, and it's not a very good result. Here's what I'd do, though. I'd run the damn ball. I mean, you got to run the damn ball. If you can't run the ball with Jaden Ball, it is not much going to matter. I think either of these quarterbacks, Tramel Jones, DJ Lagway, both have lots of talent. But if we're putting the game in their hands and saying, hey, we're going to be one-dimensional and you got to go win this ball game, I don't see much of a chance. I think Pete Golding will eat this Florida offense alive. So can they establish the ground game with Jaden Ball? That's been the key, it feels like, for Florida all season long when they've been able to run the football effectively, when they've gotten in his hands. Haven't won every time, but they've had a much better shot, it's felt like. So
go ahead. You got to remind yourself that even with Ole Miss turning the corner a little bit with its run defense, they still are 65th in the country in allowing yard after contact. So it does give you an idea of, things have been able to work in favor of Ole Miss when it comes to the ground game. But at the same time, they still allowed 100 yards rushing to Oklahoma. They still allowed 100 yards rushing to Georgia. They still played too close for comfort at times with Arkansas's ground game. You have a running back that at his peak is the best in the SEC. Run the damn ball. Like, sincerely, just run the damn ball. That's all you got to do. And I promise you, things will at least be beneficial for your team. Doesn't mean it's going to end well, but beneficial meaning it could work.
And on the flip side, Bear, too, I mean, again, this is a Gators defense that allowed 233 rushing yards to the Kentucky Wildcats. You got to think it's going to be a lot of Kawan Lacey for Ole Miss also. He's been a guy that I think really underrated player, undervalued. You look every single week, it seems like he's punching it in 2 or 3 times in the end zone, making an impact in that rushing attack. I think you use Kawan Lacey early and often. Also, the legs of Trinidad Chambliss, as we know, will be a big factor in this football game as well. Again, we all know it's physicality up front. Run it, stop it, take care of it. That's the key every single week. But I think especially in this game, taking the pressure off the quarterbacks, especially if you are Florida, it's going to be your path to victory here. Bear, when you look at it, go ahead.
I just personally think that you got to throw it in this game. That, for me, with Trinidad Chambliss, you have another 300-yard performance against Citadel. I get it. It's the Citadel. It doesn't matter. What are we talking about now? 5 300-yard performances this year from a quarterback that came from Ferris State. I mean, that's been your bread and butter. And
here's what I'd say too, Cole. I think they're gonna throw it. I like, for all we've talked about with Lane Kiffin, I fully expect Lane to be deep in his bag. I think if I'm Lane, I want to go out there and prove a point. I want to go out there and take it to Florida. I want to show, hey, you know what? I don't need you. I'll go out here and prove it to you on the field that I don't need you. So I would imagine the game plan will be about as creative as any you've seen from Ole Miss this year.
Yeah, I mean, they got 4 receivers with at least 25 catches and 3 receivers with the 4th barely on the outside looking in with over 400 receiving yards. My bad, 5 receivers with almost 400 receiving yards. So, I mean, you throw that in, you have so many weapons that can be utilized to your advantage on winning one-on-one battles, whether it be Daquan Wright or Caden Lee, or you throw a little bit of Winston Watkins and what he's been able to provide to Deshaun Stribling. You get a little bit of Harrison Wallace, Juice Alexander. I mean, the ability to trust your passing attack has been kind of the reason why you've gotten here. And then you turn to your run game as, hey, we're going to use this to set the tone for the matchup. I agree with you. I think that Lane wants to come out swinging and send a message. I can beat you in so many different ways. I got a whole bag of tricks that are yet to be used. Do you want me to go into halftime, pull it out of the woodshed, and just say, hey, welcome to what we're going to go ahead and put out here for the rest of the season? That's what I think the game plan has to be in this game.
Bear, that being said, like we mentioned, Ole Miss, big favorites. Florida will try to come in and play spoiler, just like they did a season ago. But this time, Saturday night in Oxford. That being said, let's lock in some picks. Let's lock in some predictions. Like I said before, SEC Unfiltered will be on hand for this one as the SEC Unfiltered Tour rolls through Oxford, Mississippi. Bear, would you like the honors? You want me to start first?
Yeah, I'll go first for this one. Again, this is a big game for Ole Miss, and largely it's because of what it means for your future. Don't worry about Lane Kiffin leaving for Baton Rouge or Gainesville. Worry about what is the immediate future. A winning, you're in the college football playoff. With a win, you are guaranteed at least a spot for an opportunity to hoist up your first national title. That's incredible. In a season where we all wondered what was Ole Miss going to be after wasting what many thought was an all-star roster from a season ago, Lane Kiffin defies the odds and gets the job done. But you cannot allow yourself to go into this matchup thinking that it's a done deal. Like I've told many an Ole Miss folk before, you get a signature win over Oklahoma, you're in the driver's seat. Don't take your foot off the gas. We've watched too many teams do that in this conference, and it's come back to lead to a heartbreaking loss or the inevitable shoe dropping to welcome back to an underwhelming moment in the world of college football. You have to start out strong. Now, for Florida, you got to give reason for Lane or for any coach out there to prove we have a roster that is still good enough if you just tweak a few things that we could be right back in the hunt for a college football playoff bid. Because why would you want to leave a place like Oxford or a place like Columbia, Missouri, or a place like Atlanta, Georgia, or Louisville, Kentucky, where you know that you have an opportunity to compete for your own national title bid, to go to a team that, yeah, you get the resources, but the expectations are way too high, and your roster is going to take a few years to truly rebuild and turn it into a national title contender. So this is one of those games that you have to go out swinging and prove to everybody, we just need the right person behind the wheel. We got the parts. We got the engine. We got the brand new, stereo system. We got subwoofers in the back that are awesome. We got the shiny wheels. We got new interior leather. It's fantastic. We just need somebody who can drive the car a little bit better than the last guy and not crash it into the telephone pole. That's what we have. For me, this comes down to Florida not having, I think, the quarterback that you can trust, and Ole Miss having a quarterback that is trying to still prove to everybody, making the call to go to Ole Miss and fighting my way through the finish line is why we are built different. I think Ole Miss is built different. I think Ole Miss has been built different all year. I think Ole Miss kind of realized midway through the season when they were able to go hang 30+ against Georgia, hey, we got something special. If we do not shoot ourselves in the foot, this could be a year to remember. And Ole Miss doesn't shoot itself in the foot on Saturday. Ole Miss runs its way up and down Vaught Hemingway as a celebration rally cry. We're here. We're in the college football playoff, and we mean business. And to top it all off, I've said this before, Lane has been a step ahead of everybody the entire time. Lane hasn't come out and made an announcement about anything. Lane hasn't made any type of chatter, buzz, said anything about taking the Florida job, the LSU job. After getting a 38-13 win on Saturday, Lane enters the press conference and says, "You really think I'm leaving a place like this?" Thus signaling he's sticking around in Oxford for not just college football playoff berth, but this is home. This is where he's meant to be.
I love it, Bear. I love it. And I love the bold prediction, by the way, with the post game. That would be very on brand for Lane and absolutely legendary. First things first, excited to get back down to Oxford. Like I've said many times during this show, my first ever game at Ole Miss was last year against Georgia. Will it get much better than that ever? I don't know. That was a pretty legendary night in the SIP. But either way, it's going to be an absolute blast. Rebels fans are incredible. Excited to see the Grove on maybe not a rainy Saturday. That is something I'm very pumped for. If you've been to the Grove, you know what I'm talking about. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be a big party. They never lose the tailgate. I want this game to be close. I do, just because it'd be interesting. I don't think it's going to be close. I really don't. I tend to agree with you. I think more so Lane Kiffin is going to use this as an opportunity to show I'm right where I need to be. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And we are on a path to doing really, really big things. Again, it's the irony that it's the game that if they win would punch their ticket essentially to the college football playoff. When this is the team last year that went a long way in knocking them out of that conversation. They essentially did knock them out of that conversation when they got upset by the Florida Gators. Florida's just a mess. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. They're a mess. And I mean, you got no head coach. You got assistants that are more than likely looking, obviously, hey, what's my next stop, polishing up their resumes. You got kids on that roster that I'm sure are getting calls from different schools, and they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, transfer portal. It is just a mess. These two programs in completely different stratospheres right now. And I agree with you. You could simplify this as easily as one team's got a quarterback and an offense that I trust, and the other just simply does not. I don't trust that Florida could, even if they make this thing competitive, close, I don't think they could go toe-to-toe with Ole Miss for 4 quarters and do what's necessary to win this football game, especially on the offensive side. And I feel more like Ole Miss, this football team, they know the chatter that's out there. They know what everybody's saying. They're going to use that as a rallying cry to go out and go play their best football. I would be stunned if Ole Miss went out and looked intimidated or hesitant, or like, the pressure's on Florida here. Ole Miss is the better team, flat out the better team. It's the reason they're such a big favorite. I think they come out, play their best football. I think they're going to be fired up, excited to do it for Lane, and also do it for what it means for the future of this season specifically. I don't know if Lane comes out in the post-game presser and says for certain, hey, I'm here to stay, like Oxford's my home, I'm happy to be here. But I think what happens on the field is going to scream that louder than anything else. I got Ole Miss 35, Florida 17, and I don't know that it's even as close as that score is really going to indicate. I like Ole Miss to cover here, even with the big number. Yeah, I think Lane Kiffin gets so deep in his bag on Saturday night, and I think it's a really fun night in Oxford for the Rebels yet again. Again, two programs going completely different directions, and yeah, I think Lane's going to factor that in when thinking about his future, and I think he's in a good spot. And the longer this thing goes and the more Ole Miss keeps winning, the more I think Lane Kiffin ain't going anywhere. So I think there'll be another step in that direction. Ole Miss 35, Florida 17, and congratulations, Ole Miss, for making the college football playoff.
Welcome to the postseason, baby. Powder blue helmets all the way. There we go.
Welcome to the party. Maybe, just maybe, playoff football at Vaught Hemingway. You never know. We'll see how it shakes out with the brackets and everything else. But Bears going with Ole Miss. I'm going with Ole Miss. It's a hotty-toddy party all the way around, guys. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? Who do you have coming out on top Saturday night in Oxford, Ole Miss or Florida? Guys, it's going to do all for us. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Before we get out of here, do want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, because as always, we're brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Guys, it's NBA tip-off week, and FanDuel is your home for live betting. So even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel's got live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now is the perfect time to join, because FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, just visit FanDuel.com/SECU to sign up today. Once again, FanDuel.com/SECU. Play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Guys, once again, we appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts, all across your favorite social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. For Cole the Bear Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Y'all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all this weekend in Oxford.